إني أحب شيخنا محبة تقربا إلى الذي لا ند له
وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه أما بعد. My dearly respected brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated upon the creation a great number of worships. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned that the purpose of our creation is for the purpose of worship. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and I did not create the jinn and the mankind except to worship me. So worship, my dear brothers, is the purpose of our existence. And one thing that we must try to always remember, especially in times of difficulty and hardship, is that your worship, your ibadah, is a protection for you. And it is a way out from all hardships. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us. And many of the pious predecessors will mention statements similar to this. From their statements, they were quoted as saying that the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is like the ship of Nuh alayhi salam. The sunnah is like the ship of Nuh alayhi salam. Whoever rides it is saved. So this shows that the sunnah and worship in general, it saves you. Not only in the next life, but it also saves you in the dunya. Your worship is from the greatest means to protect yourself from all calamities. And Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He said, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ, and seek help from Allah through patience and prayer. That shows that these great worships, which is patience and salah, Allah tells us to seek His help through them. So that shows from the greatest means of getting Allah's aid and His assistance and His help is through your ibadah. Your worship is what gains you Allah's protection. And there is an amazing hadith found in Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated by the great companion Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in this hadith that there was a group of people from the past, meaning in the time of Bani Israel, 3 men who were on a journey. And as they were traveling, night fell, so they went into a cave to take rest. When they were inside the cave, a huge rock fell from the top of the mountain and it blocked the mouth of the cave. So they became trapped inside this cave. So then they said to each other, nothing will save us from this situation except that we make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal and mention our good deeds to Him that we've done. This is what they believe will save them. They're in the middle of nowhere and a huge rock is covering the door. No one to save them except Allah Azza wa Jal. So the first man, he raised his hands to Allah Azza wa Jal and he said, "Oh Allah, I used to have old parents. I had old parents. And I never used to like to give my family milk drink before my parents drank. He had a wife and children. He said, I never like to give my wife and my children milk before my parents. He said, one night I was delayed in getting the milk from the sheep. So when I reached my parents had fallen asleep. He said, and I disliked to give the milk to my family. So I waited for my parents until the Fajr, he said, holding the milk in my hand. He was holding the milk in his hand, waiting for his parents. He said, when they woke up, I gave them the milk first. He then said, oh Allah, if you know that I did this action sincerely for you, save us. So the rock, by the will of Allah, shifted slightly, not enough for them to escape. So then the second man stood and he said, oh Allah, I used to have a cousin, a female cousin, who was the most beloved and dear person to me. A female that he loved extremely, out of desire. He said, and one night I asked her to commit adultery with me, and she refused. He said, and then time passed by, and she was suffering from a famine, a drought. There was no food or water. He said, so she came to me for help. He said, so I gave her 120 dinar on the condition that she fulfills my desire. He said, and she accepted. She was in a desperate state. He said, when I came to approach her, she said to me, fear Allah and do not destroy my chastity unless it is through marriage. He said, so then I remembered the sin and I left her. And I kept the 120 dinar with her. He said, oh Allah, if you know that I avoided this sin of zina to the most beloved lady to me and I left it for your sake, save us. Allahu Akbar. The most desirable thing to him, and he left it for Allah. And then the rock shifted. But still it wasn't enough. And then the third man stood and he said, oh Allah, there was once a time where I hired laborers to work for him. He said, and when they finished their work, they all took their payment except one of those laborers. He left before getting paid. He said, so I kept his wage. And I invested it for him on the land. This was his laborer. He invested his wage for him in his land. He said, and his wage grew, and it grew, and it grew on my land. Then a time passed by, and then that same laborer came back. And he said, Ya Abdullah, give me my wage. He came to ask for his haqq. So this man said to him, everything you see here, from the cows and the camels and the sheep and the slaves, it's all yours. So the laborer replied to him and he said, don't mock me. I'm just asking for my wage. He said, by Allah, I'm not mocking you. When you left, I invested your wage and all this is yours. He said, so the man took everything and did not leave a single sheep. It's his haqq. So the man said, oh Allah, if you know that I did that action sincerely for your sake, save us. And then finally the rock moved enough for them to escape. The greatest lesson from this hadith, my dear brothers, or one of the greatest lessons, shows you that your worship will save you. Your worship will save you, especially in times of difficulty. And we know An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whenever he struggled with something or something worried him, he would rush to the salah. Because that's where he found his safety. So if we want Allah's protection and we want Allah's security, we must be dedicated to worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. Wallahu a'lam. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
خذوا بأسباب دنياكم ولا تقفوا وقوف مضطرب فالله حاميها.